It's a shame.
So good afternoon, everybody. First, you've been told by your host that unfortunately the speaker that has been booked needed to drop out because of personal reasons. So that's why I would like to introduce my colleague Siegfried Huygen. He's responsible for the Benelux for partner development, specifically for networking and security. Siegfried?
Give me the opportunity to welcome Nick Peters, who is a sales specialist at VMware, specifically for network and security. So a disclaimer on a session that we were about to give by my colleague Martijn Smit, very much focus on a certain part of NSX functionality chained to ecosystem partners. He's not technical, I'm not that technical, so we're going to do an NSX overview session. So bear with us if you would. Here we go. When you work with end customers, you do business with end customers, the end customers talk about business needs and business problems. The focus being on the business side of things. From an IT perspective, there's only one solution, I repeat, there's only one solution for a business need or a business problem, and that's the application. Everything under the application is supporting the application to meet business problems and business needs. The goals when it comes to applications haven't changed that much over time. It's always been about security of the application, speed of delivery, and application availability. Now, what has changed is everything else. The infrastructure has changed. We came from a very traditional infrastructure and went into converged and even hyper-converged infrastructure. The threat plane has changed. If you turn open a newspaper in the last couple of weeks or months, there's threat after threat after threat after threat. We need to cope, as IT, we need to cope with those threats. And the application architectures have changed. So we're moving away from legacy Win32 applications into SaaS, into HTML, into all kinds of other application infrastructures. So for the network, that has implications. If we look at the network over the last 20 years, from an architectural point of view, the network hasn't changed that much. It's still in hardware, it's routers, it's switches, it's RJ45 ports, and it's connectivity over optimized routing and switching protocols, period. Everything else has changed. So how are we going to cope from a network and security perspective to align IT with the business so that we can answer the business with the speed it needs? I love these playing out slides. So on the one hand, you have the business, and the business wants speed and flexibility. The business wants Facebook, and it wants Spotify, and it wants Netflix, and it doesn't want to be bothered with the impact of every application update you get. It doesn't need yet another Office 2003 to 2013 upgrade, which takes months to prepare, months to implement, and months to aftercare. It needs speed and flexibility. IT, on the other hand, they want risk mitigation. They see the outside world is dangerous. They're responsible for the IP and the data of the organization. Therefore, they need all kinds of measurements to keep the data safe, to keep the data in the data center. They want control. Now, up until a couple of months, this was impossible to combine. It was either flexibility or control. And we're here to tell you that, well, we have a solution for that. So, who doesn't know VMware? Cool. That's good. What we are very good at is virtualizing compute. That's what we started 15 years ago, and, well, patting myself on the back, we're pretty good at that. Up until now, we still are. The second thing we started virtualizing was storage, the vSAN proposition we have. And the last of the Mohicans, as I like to call it, is the network, because giving you a virtualized compute and giving you virtualized storage, giving you the ability to program into software, gives you flexibility, yet maintaining security. And now I come to the network, and I come to the same network that we've had for 20 years in hardware. and all the attempts that I have to really automate, to really give flexibility, yet to remain secure, stop. About 3 years ago, we bought a company called Nicira. And Nicira is known for network virtualization. And what we do, after we decoupled compute from the hardware, after we decoupled storage from the hardware, we now decouple the network from the hardware. By putting it into software, I have now created a method of workload mobility, true workload mobility. I really don't care what my hardware underlay is, as long as I have my stuff in software, I am able to freely move it around there where it's most cost effective, there where it's the safest, there where I can be the most flexible, and all these other metrics that I can use that my business needs. Okay. So, like I said, decouple makes any compute platform, any storage platform, any IP network. Again, playing it out. Amongst other things, what we built in NSX is virtualized, and if there's one thing of the quarter that we're talking about that I would really like you to remember, virtualized and distributed networking components. Firewalling, load balancing, routing, switching. Distributed. Take a single switch, which has 100 gigabytes of throughput. Now imagine that I have a server, an ESX host, with NSX on it, which has virtualized switching. And the network ports of the ESX host has dual 10 gigs throughput. So I have 20 gigs per server. Because it's distributed, if I add a host, I go from 20 to 40. From 40 to 60, 80, 100, 120, scale out without losing performance, because the performance is not tied into the amount of hardware I have. Every hardware is an entity in itself, performing as one entity. So you lose performance constraints in one single point of failure. Same goes for firewalling, same goes for routing, same goes for load balancing. I really like this one, to be honest. Play it out. Okay, so a couple of issues you run across in traditional application infrastructures. Traditional application infrastructure has a front end, probably a web server. It sometimes has a middleware server, and it probably has a database server. You want those things to live together because of latency and bandwidth and throughput constraints that you have when you separate them over VLANs or over data centers. So you want them to be cozy together. If you do this in a hardware scenario, you're bound by the hardware. You either create incredibly operational, infeasible routing protocols or routing tables to make sure that all the server components can talk to each other, or you create a very flat network, and that creates an immense attack surface for hackers. So it's lood om oud ijzer in Dutch. By introducing NSX, by introducing network virtualization, I am now able to bind the three-tier application together with all my firewall rules, all my switching rules, all my routing rules, all my even load balancing rules, and make them portable. Who has heard of IBM SoftLayer or Bluemix? Who has heard of AWS? Go yay! Okay. AWS and IBM SoftLayer have announced a joint, what do you call it? Cooperation with VMware on NSX, specifically on NSX. So now your customers are able, or you are able, to migrate Win32 workloads seamlessly from your own data center into either IBM or AWS. I repeat, seamlessly. Who has ever tried to migrate an application into a cloud? Migrate. It's not possible. Why is it not possible? Because you might be able to migrate the data out, but you're not able to migrate the server out because there's no routing protocol that attaches to it, and there's a lot of IP conflicting that is involved with that. With introducing NSX and overlaying your network, you are now capable of creating a transport network which makes it possible to seamlessly migrate applications and data from your own data center into another data center. And more importantly, migrate it back. So now I am capable as a customer, or from your customer point of view, to choose the workload host that is most sufficient to the needs of the application from a performance standpoint, from a flexibility standpoint, or from a cost standpoint. And I'll stop talking.
Oh, thank you, Siegfried. So I would like to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about why customers in the Netherlands, in Europe, in the world are embracing NSX. And I think we saw, when we look at that, we see 15, 20, 25 use cases, but we have some that really stand out and where we see coming back over and over again. NSX is not a solution, it's an architecture for solutions. So I would like to take a couple of minutes to talk to you about the 3 prime use cases we see. Let me start with the middle one, the security use case. When we look at most data centers from a VMware standpoint, we see that security is on their mind and that they have invested in security. But what we primarily see is that they secured the perimeter, laid a firewall around the perimeter. In some occasions, they have a segmented network where they segment a DMZ, for example, but true microsegmentation has not been implemented. So we identify this as an internal trust everyone network, a data center. Combining this with some other factors that east-west traffic, so intra-data center network traffic. When we do measurements, it amounts to 70, 80, even 90% of all traffic is east-west traffic as opposed to north-south traffic. So Forrester talks to many customers and provides a lot of reports. They embraced one principle, the zero trust principle, where and we as VMware can implement a zero trust model with our customers. So truly micro-segment within the data center. Our firewall possibilities are within the hypervisor, so around the logical unit or around logical units. We can provide firewall functionality. Next generation firewall functionality, we are not a true security company, but we provide a platform to many technology partners of ours, including the one SecureLink works with very intensively, Palo Alto Networks, but some others as well. And they can inject services into our platform and deliver next generation firewall functionality for east-west traffic. So this greatly reduces your attack surface. That's a prime use case, a very immediate use case, but it's a platform, and we see many other reasons for customers embracing NSX. Another one is automation. A lot of customers come to us and say we help them enormously. It takes them minutes to provision a VM, and we're close to storage, and storage can be virtualized, so they don't see any problems delivering storage workloads. But they do see that with networking, with routing and switching, with security even. And by virtualizing this, by making this software defined, our customers have the possibility to deliver in VMware, in VM delivery fashion, full workloads, so fully tiered application stacks. We tightly integrate with many cloud management platforms, including our own, of course. So And looking at the latter prime use case, it's all about application continuity, DR, workload mobility. You talked about real use cases like companies want to become public cloud ready. They want to enter a public cloud space, but also migrate back seamlessly by making your workloads truly software defined for the full infrastructure. This can be accomplished.
Only 15 seconds left for a not-prepared presentation. That's not bad, I think. Really? So why is there 42 seconds on the board? Oh, okay. So a couple of things to add to the discussion or to the conversation that Nick started. One is implementing NSX means implementing the virtual appliance, period. There's no impact from implementing the virtual appliance. So unlike most security products that I've come across, you can start small. You can start with one use case, like for example DMZ Everywhere, where you don't physically separate the outside world from the inside world by firewalls, but DMZing the workloads that are meant to be in a DMZ environment. Or you can start small and start by using the use case of a highly secured application. Just combining, like I said previously, the web application and database server of one very important application in your network. You could start by doing DevOps and start with the development environment. The point I'm trying to make is start small. Learn the product, learn the platform, learn the architecture, and then expand as you need. That's very important, I think. Like Nick said, integration with actually every major vendor out there. So what you have and what you have running, keep it running. You want to make it better, think of me. Yeah, that's about it, I think.
Guess so. Maybe we can take some questions.
Any questions
if possible from within the room?
That means you got another 3 minutes to fill.
That's okay, that's okay. Are there any questions? No? Okay. Because, like I said, so Martijn was supposed to speak, but I think we can all say we are very glad that they sent Nick and Siegfried to fulfill that job, because they did a wonderful job. And I would like to have a wonderful applause for these two gentlemen for their presentation.